My name's Ethan, and this happened during my freshman year at a small college in northern Pennsylvania. I moved into an old dormitory called Hawthorne Hall, a brick building that had been standing since the 1950s. The place had a reputation for strange stories, but I never believed any of them. Most of us assumed they were just ghost tales invented by bored students. During my second month there, my roommate transferred to another college, leaving me alone in room 214. At first, having a private room felt amazing. I could stay up late playing games, watching movies, and studying without anyone bothering me. But after about a week, strange things started happening. Every night around 2:14 a.m., I would wake up to the sound of 3 knocks coming from inside my room. Not from the door, not from the window. The knocks seemed to come from somewhere inside the walls. The first few times, I ignored it, assuming the old pipes were making noise. But the knocking always came in the exact same pattern. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence. A few days later, I mentioned it to the student living across the hall. The moment I said 2:14 a.m., his expression changed. He asked me if I was in room 214. When I told him yes, he became noticeably uncomfortable. He explained that several years earlier, a student named Michael had lived in that room. According to campus rumors, Michael had been struggling with severe anxiety and isolation. One night, he vanished. His belongings remained in the room, but he was never seen again. The college never publicly discussed what happened. I laughed it off, assuming it was another dorm ghost story. Yet that night, when I returned to my room, I found something odd. My desk chair, which I always kept facing the window, had been turned toward my bed. I was certain I hadn't moved it. Over the following weeks, the activity intensified. Objects appeared in places where I hadn't left them. My closet door would slowly open by itself even after I closed it. Sometimes I would hear footsteps crossing the room while I was lying in bed. The footsteps sounded soft, almost cautious, as if someone didn't want to be noticed. One night, I decided to stay awake and see what happened at exactly 2:14 a.m. I sat at my desk with my phone recording. As the clock changed from 2:13 to 2:14, the room became strangely quiet. Even the distant sounds from the hallway disappeared. Then came the 3 knocks. This time they sounded louder than ever. Before I could react, my closet door slowly creaked open. I felt every hair on my body stand up. The room suddenly became freezing cold. I grabbed my phone and pointed its flashlight toward the closet. Nothing was there. But when I checked the recording the next morning, I noticed something horrifying. Just before the closet door opened, a faint whisper could be heard. It sounded like a male voice saying, "Help me." I stopped sleeping properly after that. My grades started slipping because I was exhausted all the time. One evening, while searching online for information about the dorm, I found an old newspaper article archived on a local website. It mentioned a student disappearance from Hawthorne Hall decades earlier. The student's name was Michael. The article stated that his last known location had been room 214. What caught my attention was the date. He disappeared on October 14th. I looked at the calendar. October 14th was only 3 days away. On the night of October 14th, a powerful storm hit campus. Rain hammered against the windows, and most students stayed inside. Around midnight, the power briefly flickered several times. I remember feeling unusually anxious. By 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. I sat in bed watching videos on my phone while listening to the wind outside. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the knocks came again. This time, there were more than 3. They continued relentlessly from inside the wall behind my bed. Knock, 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 It sounded as though someone was desperately trying to get out. Suddenly, my phone screen went black. The room's lights shut off. Complete darkness surrounded me. Then, I heard breathing. Slow, heavy breathing from the corner of the room. I turned on my phone flashlight and aimed it toward the sound. For a brief second, I saw a figure standing beside the closet. It appeared to be a young man wearing old-fashioned college clothing. His face looked pale and distorted, as if submerged underwater. The figure wasn't looking at me. It was staring at the wall behind my bed. Then it raised one arm and pointed. The moment it did, the lights came back on. The figure vanished instantly. The next day, I reported everything to campus maintenance. They assumed I was exaggerating, but they agreed to inspect the wall because I complained about strange noises. When workers removed part of the drywall behind my bed, they discovered a hidden maintenance space that had been sealed decades earlier. Inside was dust, old wiring, and something much more disturbing. They found a backpack containing identification belonging to Michael, the missing student. News spread quickly across campus. Police became involved, but nobody could explain how the backpack had remained hidden there for so many years. I moved out of Hawthorne Hall immediately afterward. The college eventually renovated the entire floor, and room 214 was closed for several months. For a while, I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe stress and lack of sleep had caused hallucinations. Maybe the figure I saw wasn't real. But 6 months later, while scrolling through old photos on my phone, I found something I had never noticed before. One of the videos I recorded that night was still saved. Near the end of the footage, after the closet door opens, a face briefly appears in the darkness behind me. A pale face with wide eyes, staring directly into the camera. The creepiest part wasn't the face itself. It was what happened when I checked the video details. The recording's timestamp wasn't 2:14 a.m. According to the file information, the video had been created at 2:14 a.m. on October 14th, 23 years before I was born. And to this day, whenever October 14th arrives, I receive an empty email from an unknown address. No subject, no message, just a single attachment that never opens. The file name is always the same. Room 214_helpme.mov. My name is Ryan, and this happened during my sophomore year at a university in Colorado. I was living in a student hostel called Pine Ridge Hall, an old 4-story building that had been converted from a hotel decades earlier. Everything seemed normal until a new student moved into room 317 across the hall. His name was Lucas, and he was a quiet guy who mostly kept to himself. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. But then students started noticing something strange. Every night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., the hallway security camera would briefly lose signal for about 30 seconds. Nobody thought much of it until one morning, Lucas didn't show up for class. His room was locked from the inside, and when campus security opened the door, they found it completely empty. His wallet, laptop, clothes, and phone were still there. But Lucas was gone. The police searched the building, checked every exit, and reviewed the security footage. The video showed Lucas entering his room the night before, but there was no footage of him ever leaving. After a few weeks, the investigation stalled, and eventually people stopped talking about it. A month later, the room was assigned to a transfer student named Kevin. 3 nights after moving in, Kevin came knocking on my door looking terrified. He asked if I had been standing outside his room at night. I told him no. He explained that every night he woke up around 3:17 a.m. and saw a shadow standing under the gap of his door. At first, he assumed it was a student in the hallway, but when he opened the door, nobody was there. Then, things got worse. He started hearing someone slowly walking around his room after midnight. Not running, not stomping, just slow footsteps circling his bed. We thought stress was affecting him, until one night, he showed me a recording from his phone. Around 3:17 a.m., the camera captured a faint figure standing in the corner of his room. The figure appeared only for a second before disappearing. What frightened me wasn't the figure itself, it was the face. Even though the image was blurry, it looked exactly like the missing student from the posters that had once been hung around campus. A week later, Kevin moved out without warning. Before leaving, he told me he had started receiving text messages from an unknown number every night at 3:17 a.m. The messages contained only one sentence: "I'm still inside." Years passed, and I eventually graduated. Last winter, I attended a college reunion and learned that Pine Ridge Hall had been demolished after structural problems were discovered. During demolition, workers found a sealed maintenance corridor hidden between the walls of the third floor. Inside were dozens of old student ID cards dating back nearly 20 years. Among them was Lucas's ID. The police investigated again, but no explanation was ever given. The creepiest part happened after I returned home. While looking through old photos from college, I noticed a picture I had taken in the hostel hallway years earlier. Standing at the far end of the corridor was a young man staring directly at the camera. I zoomed in and felt my blood run cold. It was Lucas. The timestamp on the photo showed it had been taken 3 weeks after he disappeared.